The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from over 200 species. They had come from every corner of the known galaxy. Some floated in special tanks filled with liquid. Others sat on chairs made for their strange bodies. A few simply hovered in the air using technology beyond most understanding. Ambassador Vethener of the Krillix Dominion walked to the center of the chamber with his head held high. He was tall, covered in dark green scales, and his yellow eyes showed nothing but confidence. His species had conquered 47 worlds in the last 300 years. They were known throughout the galaxy as efficient and ruthless warriors. They had never lost a war. Not once. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Vethener began, his voice strong and clear. I come before you today to announce our next target for expansion. The Krillix Dominion claims the right to annex the planet known as Sol 3. He pressed a button on his wrist device. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a blue and green planet with white clouds. It was beautiful in a simple way. This world is called Earth by its inhabitants, Vethener continued. It is a primitive planet. The dominant species has not yet developed faster than light travel. They have no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms. Their weapons are crude and chemical-based. Most importantly, they still fight wars among themselves. They are divided into hundreds of separate nations that cannot agree on anything. Vethener smiled, showing his sharp teeth. It will be an easy conquest. We estimate full planetary control within 30 rotations. The natives will make excellent workers for our mining operations. He waited for the usual response. When the Krillix announced a new conquest, most species simply nodded and looked away. No one wanted to challenge the Dominion. No one wanted to be target number 40-8. But this time, something strange happened. The chamber fell completely silent. Not the respectful silence of agreement. This was different. This was the silence of shock, of disbelief, of something that might even be fear. Vethener looked around, confused. Representatives were exchanging glances with each other. Some were shaking their heads slowly. A few had covered their eyes or equivalent organs. One delegate from a species of small, furry creatures had actually fainted. High Counselor Morwen leaned forward in her seat. She was ancient, even by galactic standards. Her body glowed with soft bioluminescent light that changed color with her emotions. Right now, it was shifting between deep blue and pale white. In her species, this meant a mixture of sadness and concern. Ambassador Vethener, she said slowly, as if speaking to a child. Did you say you wish to invade Earth? The planet of the humans. Yes, Vethener replied, his confusion growing. Is there a problem? The planet is not under Council protection. It is not claimed by any member species. We have every right under galactic law, too. Rights are not the issue here, interrupted another voice. It came from the Decian delegate, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal. The Veshans were famous for having no emotions. They made every decision based purely on logic and calculation. Yet even this delegate sounded disturbed. Sit down, Ambassador, the Decian said. Sit down before you doom your entire civilization to extinction. Vethener's scales rippled with anger. How dare you? The Krillix Dominion has conquered 47 worlds. We have the largest fleet in this sector. We do not fear primitive species who cannot even leave their own planet. That is precisely the problem, said Counselor Morwen. You do not understand what you are proposing. You have studied the humans, yes? Tell us what you have learned. Vethener straightened his posture. We have observed them for several cycles. They are fragile creatures. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom. They require constant food and water. They must sleep for a third of each day, or they begin to malfunction. Their bodies break easily. They cannot survive extreme temperatures. In short, they are weak. Around the chamber, several delegates made sounds of discomfort. Someone laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had heard a very bad joke. Weak, repeated Counselor Morwen. The word hung in the air. You believe the humans are weak. The evidence is clear, Vethener insisted. Our scientists have analyzed their biology. They are nothing special. Morwen closed her ancient eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her glow had shifted to a deep, serious purple. Ambassador, I have lived for over 12,000 standard years. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen species evolve and go extinct. I have witnessed horrors that would shatter most minds. She paused, and I tell you now with absolute certainty that the humans are the most terrifying species this galaxy has ever produced. Vethener wanted to laugh. He wanted to dismiss this as the rambling of an old being who had lost her mind. But he could not ignore the faces around him. Every single delegate in that chamber was looking at him with something that looked very much like pity. You think us foolish? Vethener demanded. You think the mighty Krillix Dominion cannot handle a species of soft, hairless primates? I think, said Morwen quietly, that you have no idea what you are dealing with. And if you proceed with this invasion, you will learn. But by then, it will be far too late. She gestured to an assistant, who began preparing the chamber's historical archives. Before you make your final decision, Morwen continued, the Council will provide you with an education. We will show you exactly what the humans are, what they have done, what they are capable of doing. Vethener crossed his arms over his chest. Very well. Show me. Convince me that I should fear creatures who die from falling down. Morwen's glow flickered. They do die from falling down, Ambassador. And then they get back up. That is what makes them so dangerous. She activated the holographic display system. Let us begin with something simple. Let us talk about how humans hunt for food. The chamber's lights dimmed. On the main display, an image appeared of a vast, flat grassland under a hot sun. And in the distance, a small group of humans began to move. Vethener watched with the confidence of a predator who had never known what it meant to be prey. That confidence would not survive the next few hours. The holographic display showed a group of 4 humans moving across a hot grassland. They carried simple wooden spears. Nothing more. In the distance, a large 4-legged animal with horns was running away from them. Watch carefully, said Counselor Morwen. Vethener watched. The animal was clearly faster than the humans. It ran and ran, leaving them far behind. Vethener almost laughed. These so-called terrifying creatures could not even catch their food. But then something strange happened. The humans did not stop. They kept walking, following, moving in the same direction the animal had gone. The hunt has begun, Morwen explained. The animal is faster, much faster. But the humans do not care about speed. The display showed time passing. Hours went by. The sun moved across the sky. The animal would run, then stop to rest. Each time it stopped, the humans appeared again, walking, always walking, never stopping. Most species in the galaxy are sprinters, Morwen continued. They use quick bursts of energy to catch prey or escape danger. When the energy is gone, they must rest. They must recover. But humans are different. Humans are what their scientists call persistence predators. The animal on the display was slowing down now. Its legs were shaking. It was overheating. It tried to run again, but it could barely manage a tired jog. And still, the humans came, walking, patient, relentless. They do not stop, Morwen said quietly. Their bodies are designed to keep moving for hours, days, if necessary. They sweat to cool themselves. They breathe in a rhythm that matches their steps. They are not the fastest hunters. They are not the strongest. But they will follow prey until that prey collapses from exhaustion. On the display, the animal finally fell. It could not run anymore. It could not even stand. The humans walked up to it calmly and ended its suffering with their simple spears. Vethener felt his scales tighten slightly. This was ... unexpected. That was their past, he said, trying to sound dismissive. They have technology now. They no longer hunt this way. Correct, said Morwen. Now they hunt for sport. For fun, They chase each other across mountains for entertainment. They call it marathon running. They run for hours not because they must, but because they enjoy it. She changed the display. Now it showed something different. A frozen wasteland of ice and snow. Temperatures cold enough to kill most species in minutes. And there, in the middle of this deadly environment, humans walked. Adaptability, Morwen announced. This is perhaps their greatest weapon. The display showed humans in every possible environment. Burning deserts where they wrapped themselves in cloth and survived the heat. Deep underwater where they used simple tubes to breathe. High mountains where the air was so thin that most beings would fall unconscious. In every case, the humans found a way. They cannot breathe underwater, Morwen explained. So they built machines that let them breathe underwater. They cannot survive in space. So they built ships that carry air and warmth. They cannot fly. So they built vehicles that fly. Every limitation their bodies have, they overcome with their minds. A new image appeared. A human standing next to a massive furry predator with sharp teeth and claws. The predator could clearly kill the human in seconds. But it sat calmly, allowing the human to touch its head. They take predators and turn them into friends, Morwen said. That animal you see was once a wolf, a pack hunter that killed their ancestors. The humans captured wolf cubs, fed them, bred them. Over many generations, they turned their enemy into a loyal companion. They call them dogs now. Millions of humans share their homes with the descendants of creatures that once hunted them. Vethener said nothing. His confidence was beginning to crack. They ride animals 10 times their size, Morwen continued, showing images of humans on large four-legged creatures called horses. They keep deadly snakes as pets. They swim with ocean predators for entertainment. They enter cages with enormous cats and call it a job. The display changed again. Now it showed something that made even the other council members uncomfortable. Human medical procedures. A human lying on a table while other humans cut open its body. When their bodies fail, they cut themselves open and fix the broken parts, Morwen said. They remove organs and replace them with organs from other humans. Sometimes from other species entirely. They have even begun building mechanical replacements for body parts that stop working. This is all survival, Vethener said, his voice less steady than before. Any species would do these things to survive. Morwen's glow shifted to a dark, serious color. Then let me tell you about something uniquely human. Something that has no parallel in any other species we have encountered. The word appeared on the display in the common galactic language, spite. Humans will do things not for survival, not for resources, not for any logical reason. Morwen's voice was heavy. They will do things simply because someone told them they could not. She showed a recording of human history, a species called the Americans, and another called the Soviets. They were rivals, enemies, and they decided to race each other to their planet's moon. The moon has no valuable resources, Morwen explained. There was no military advantage to reaching it. But one group said they would get there first, so the other group spent unbelievable amounts of resources to beat them. They succeeded. They put humans on the moon and brought them back alive. Not because they needed to, but because they refused to lose. Another image. Humans climbing the tallest mountains on their planet. Mountains so high that the air at the top could not support human life. They brought their own air. They climbed until their fingers froze. Some of them died, but others kept climbing. They were asked why they climbed, Morwen said. Their answer was, because the mountain is there. They risked death for no reason except to prove they can. The final image made Vethener take a step backward. It was a weapon. A massive explosion of light and fire that destroyed an entire city in seconds. They split the atom, Morwen said quietly. They discovered the fundamental forces that hold matter together. They turned that knowledge into the most destructive weapon their world has ever seen. They used it twice, on their own species. She turned to face Vethener directly. This is what you want to invade, Ambassador. A species that will chase you until you collapse. That will adapt to any environment you force them into. That will take your own weapons and turn them against you. that will keep fighting not because they can win, but because they refuse to lose. Morwen's glow was now completely white, the color of warning. And worst of all, she said, they have done all of this while fighting among themselves. They have never been united, never faced a common enemy that threatened their entire species. She let the silence hang in the air. Imagine what they will do when you give them one. Vethener stood in the center of the chamber, his scales now a paler shade of green than when he had arrived. The images from the historical archives had disturbed him more than he wanted to admit, but he was Krillix. His people had conquered 47 worlds. He would not be frightened by stories and old recordings. This is impressive propaganda, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. But these are just records, old data. Anyone can make a species look dangerous with the right editing. I want real proof. I want testimony from species who have actually encountered these humans. Counselor Morwen nodded slowly. Very well, Ambassador. The Council will provide witnesses. She gestured to an assistant. Summon the observers. A few minutes later, the first witness entered the chamber. He was a Vorn, a species that resembled Earth's octopuses but much larger, with dozens of tentacles and multiple eyes on stalks. His name was Trade Ambassador Killix, and he moved nervously toward the speaking platform. Ambassador Killix, Morwen said gently, please tell the Council about your experience with the humans. Killix's tentacles curled and uncurled anxiously. 50 cycles ago, the Vorn Syndicate decided to observe the humans before making first contact. We wanted to understand their technology and society, to know if they would be good trading partners. It paused. We sent a surveillance probe into their orbital space. Very advanced technology, completely invisible to any scanning system we knew of. What happened? Vethener asked. For 3 cycles, everything was normal. The probe collected data. The humans seemed unaware of its presence. Killix's voice became strained. Then one day, a human spacecraft approached the probe. They should not have been able to detect it. Their technology was far too primitive, but they found it anyway. They captured it. Vethener asked. They tried. The probe had security protocols. It destroyed itself before they could take it apart. Killix shuddered, his tentacles trembling. We thought that was the end of it. We were wrong, explained Morwen prompted. The humans collected the debris, tiny fragments of the probe that survived the self-destruction, pieces smaller than my smallest sucker. Within 6 of their planetary rotations, they had figured out how the probe's power source worked. Within 1 of their years, they had built their own version of it. Cruder, yes. Less efficient, but functional.
Odds?
Vethener blinked. That is impossible. Our engineers studied that power technology for decades before understanding it. I know, Killix said miserably. They did not understand how it worked. Not fully. But they understood enough to copy it. To use it, they call it reverse engineering. They take things apart and rebuild them without knowing the original design. It is what they do. It is what they have always done. The second witness was Scholar Yenny of the Collective, a hive mind species that shared all knowledge between billions of individual units. Yenny appeared as a single floating sphere made of countless tiny organisms moving together. I've spent 30 cycles studying human culture, Yenny said, their voice coming from everywhere at once. Their history, their stories, their way of thinking. I am here to explain something that no other species in the galaxy possesses. And what is that? Vethener asked. Spite, Yenny replied. We have tried to find an equivalent in other languages. Other cultures. There is none. Spite is the act of doing something specifically because someone else does not want you to do it. It ignores logic. It ignores self-interest. It ignores survival itself. You mean example? Vethener demanded. Human will refuse to retreat from a fight they cannot win because their enemy wants them to retreat. They will endure terrible pain rather than give their opponent the satisfaction of seeing them suffer. They will destroy their own possessions rather than let someone else take them. Yenny's component organisms swirled faster, a sign of emotional distress. Their history is filled with moments where humans chose death over surrender, where they fought against impossible odds not because they thought they could win, but because they wanted to hurt their enemy as much as possible before falling. They call this many things. Last stands. Dying with honor. Going down fighting. That is foolish, Vethener said. That is wasting resources. That is precisely the point, Yini responded. Humans do not always act logically. They act emotionally. And their strongest emotion is not fear, not love, not even anger. It is defiance. The refusal to accept any outcome they do not choose for themselves. The final witness made Vethener's scales turn almost white with unease. She was a Draenari, a tall insectoid species known for their stealth abilities. They were the best spies in the galaxy, able to become nearly invisible through biological camouflage. Her name was Lieutenant Zikri, and she walked with a limp, missing 2 of her 6 legs. I was part of an observation mission, Zikri said. Her voice was quiet, damaged somehow. 12 of us went to Earth's surface to study humans directly, to watch them in their natural environment. We were invisible, undetectable, the most advanced stealth team the Draenari had ever assembled. What did you learn? Morwen asked gently. We learned that they knew we were there. Zikri's remaining legs trembled. From the first day, they always knew. They could not see us. Their instruments could not detect us. But they knew. How is that possible? Vethener asked. They felt it. They sensed it somehow. They would look directly at us, even though we were invisible. Their eyes would track our movements. Some of them smiled. Zikri's voice cracked. They were watching us watch them, and they found it amusing. What happened to your team? Morwen asked. We do not know. One by one, my teammates disappeared. No violence. No confrontation. They simply vanished. When I finally escaped the planet, I was the only one left. Zikri looked at Vethener with her compound eyes. They let me go. They wanted me to survive. They wanted me to come back here and tell others what happened. Vethener felt cold, despite the temperature-controlled chamber. Why would they do that? To send a message, Zikri said. They wanted us to know that they were aware of us, that they could have stopped us at any time, but they chose not to. They were studying us just as we were studying them. And when they were done, they removed my teammates so carefully that I never noticed anything wrong. Counselor Morwen stood. The humans do not know about the Galactic Council ambassador. They do not know that hundreds of species watch them from the stars. They believe they are alone in the universe. And yet they prepare. They build weapons. They train soldiers. They create stories and entertainment about fighting alien invasions. She moved closer to Vethener. They are waiting for us, Ambassador. They have been waiting their entire existence. Some part of them knows that something is coming, and they are getting ready. Vethener stood silent for a long moment. His certainty, so strong when he entered this chamber, was now barely a whisper in his mind. But he was Krillix. He had a duty to his people, to the Dominion. Simulations, he said finally. I want to see simulations. Run the invasion through the Council's predictive systems. Show me what would actually happen if we attacked Earth. Morwen's glow flickered. Very well, Ambassador. If that is what you need to see, she turned to the Council's technical staff. Prepare the strategic simulation chamber. Full historical integration. All available data on human military capability and psychological profiles. She looked back at Vethener with something that looked almost like sorrow. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you, Ambassador, because what you are about to see will haunt you for the rest of your days. The strategic simulation chamber was the most advanced prediction system in the known galaxy. It had been built over thousands of years, improved by hundreds of species, and contained more computing power than most civilizations would ever develop. It could model wars, economies, even the rise and fall of entire empires. Its predictions were accurate to within a fraction of a percent. Vethener stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that floated in the air around him. Counselor Morwen and several other delegates had joined him. No one wanted to miss this. The simulation will model a standard Krillix invasion, the technical operator explained. She was a small creature with too many eyes, her species known for their mathematical genius. We will use your actual fleet composition, your standard tactics, and all available data on human capabilities. The simulation will run through every possible scenario and calculate the probability of victory. Begin, Vethener ordered. The displays came alive. Acrylic's invasion fleet appeared in orbit around Earth, 50 warships, each one capable of destroying cities from space. 10,000 ground troops in dropships, ready to land and secure key locations. It was the same force that had conquered dozens of worlds before. The first phase went exactly as Vethenar expected. The human military scrambled to respond, but they had nothing that could touch ships in orbit. Acrylic's weapons burned through their primitive aircraft. Their missiles were intercepted before they could reach the fleet. Within the first day of simulation time, all human military bases had been destroyed. Their governments were in chaos. Their communication networks were shattered. Vethener allowed himself a small smile. This was exactly what he had predicted. Then came the ground invasion. Acrylic's troops landed in major cities around the world. They expected resistance to collapse quickly, as it had on every other world they had conquered. It did not collapse. Humans fought back with everything they had. They used weapons designed to fight each other, turning them against the invaders with frightening creativity. They set traps in buildings. They attacked supply lines. They struck from hiding and vanished before the Acrylics could respond. Worse, they learned. Every battle taught them something new about Acrylic's tactics, Acrylic's weapons, Acrylic's weaknesses. The simulation showed them adapting in real time, changing their strategies after each engagement. Accelerate, Vethener said, his voice less confident than before. The simulation jumped forward. 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. The Acrylics had won every major battle. They controlled the cities. They had captured the governments. By every standard measure, the invasion was a complete success. But the humans had not surrendered. They had simply changed their approach. The simulation showed them disappearing into mountains, forests, underground bunkers. They formed small groups that struck without warning and vanished without a trace. They sabotaged Acrylic's equipment. They contaminated food supplies. They spread false information that turned Acrylic's units against each other.
Oh.
They call this guerrilla warfare, the technical operator explained. Humans have used it throughout their history. They invented it to fight enemies stronger than themselves. They are very, very good at it. At the 1-year mark, the Acrylics were losing soldiers faster than they could replace them. Not in big battles, but in small ambushes. 1 soldier here. 3 soldiers there. Death by 1,000 cuts. At 2 years, something terrible happened. A group of human scientists, working in a hidden laboratory, created a biological weapon specifically designed to kill Acrylics. It targeted their unique biology with perfect precision, leaving other species unharmed. Impossible, Vethener whispered. They do not have that level of biotechnology. They did not, Morwen said quietly. At the start of the invasion, but they captured Acrylic's medical equipment. They studied your bodies. They learned, this is what humans do, Ambassador. They take what you give them and use it against you. The simulation continued. At 5 years, the biological weapon had spread across every occupied territory. Acrylic soldiers were dying by the thousands. The invasion force was crippled. At 10 years, the remaining Acrylics tried to retreat to their ships. The humans had anticipated this. They had spent a decade studying captured Acrylic's technology, and now they had their own spacecraft. Crude copies, built with limited resources, but functional enough to reach orbit. The retreating Acrylic's fleet was ambushed by human ships crewed by pilots, who had trained in secret for years. The ships were inferior in every way, but the humans did not care about losses. They threw themselves at the Acrylics with complete disregard for their own survival. For every human ship destroyed, they took a Acrylic ship with them. Run it again? Vethener demanded. Different strategy. Heavier initial bombardment. The technical operator complied. The simulation ran again with overwhelming force applied from the beginning. Cities were destroyed instead of occupied. Populations were decimated. The humans still did not surrender. The survivors went underground. They waited. They planned. And when the Krillix finally landed troops to secure resources, the attacks began again. Again, Vethener said. His voice was hollow now. The simulation ran 100 times. 500 times. 1,000 times. The technical operator tried every possible approach. Quick invasions. Slow invasions. Targeted strikes. Complete devastation. Occupation with local collaborators. Pure extermination attempts. Every single scenario ended the same way. In some simulations, it took 50 years. In others, only 10. But in every single one, the humans eventually won. They found weaknesses. They exploited mistakes. They never, ever stopped fighting. The worst simulation was number 15,000. The technical operator called it the optimal outcome. The absolute best-case scenario for the Krillix Dominion. In this scenario, the Krillix killed 90% of all humans on Earth. They held the planet for 30 years. They stripped it of resources and enslaved the survivors, and then the humans, developed faster than light travel. They had reverse-engineered it from captured Krillix ships. It took them only 28 years. Species that had been given this technology freely had taken centuries to understand it. The humans figured it out while fighting in occupation, while living in hiding. While most of their civilization lay in ruins, the simulation showed what happened next. Human ships appeared at the Krillix homeworld. Not an invasion fleet. Just scouts at first. Watching, learning. Just as they had watched and learned on Earth. Then, the attacks began. The same guerrilla tactics. The same endless persistence. The same absolute refusal to stop until their enemy was destroyed. The optimal outcome for the Krillix Dominion was the total extinction of the invasion. Force within 30 standard years, followed by a human counter-invasion that spread across 12. Krillix systems within a century. The simulation's final conclusion appeared on the main display. It was written in simple text that seemed to glow in the darkened chamber. Victory probability, 0.0%. Recommended strategy, avoidance. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Vethener stared at the words for a long time. His scales had lost all their proud color. His posture, once so confident, had collapsed into something small and broken. This cannot be right, he whispered. No species is undefeatable. Counselor Morwen placed a gentle appendage on his shoulder. The humans have a saying, ambassador. They say that the only way to win some games is not to play at all. She guided him toward the exit. Tomorrow, you will address the council one final time. I suggest you think carefully about what you will say. Vethener walked out of the simulation chamber in silence. Behind him, the displays still showed the final message. Glowing in the darkness like a warning from the universe itself. Do not engage. Do not provoke. The great chamber of the Galactic. Council was silent as Vethener walked to the speaking platform for the final time. He looked different from the proud ambassador who had arrived just days ago. His scales were dull. His eyes no longer burned with confidence. He moved like someone who had seen a ghost, or perhaps something much worse than a ghost. Every delegate watched him approach. No one whispered. No one made private comments. They all knew what was coming. They had all seen the simulation results. Vethener reached the center of the chamber and stood there for a long moment, staring at the floor. When he finally looked up, his voice was quiet but clear. The Krillix Dominion formally withdraws its proposal to annex Sol 3. No one cheered. No one celebrated. This was not a victory for anyone. It was simply the avoidance of a disaster that would have echoed across the galaxy for centuries. We will remove all observation posts from the Sol system, Vethener continued. We will delete all records of human technology from our databases. We will treat the planet and its inhabitants as if they do not exist. He paused, struggling with the next words, and we will hope that they never learn we were watching them. Counselor Morwen rose from her seat, her bioluminescent skin glowing with soft, sympathetic colors. The Council accepts the withdrawal, Ambassador. and we commend your wisdom in making this decision. Many species have not been so fortunate. Many have learned the truth about humans too late. The Thessian delegate, still speaking in his emotionless tone, raised a question that had been hanging over the entire assembly. What happens now? The humans are advancing rapidly. Their probes have left their solar system. Their radio signals travel further each cycle. They will discover us eventually. Morwen nodded slowly. Yes, they will. Perhaps in a century. Perhaps sooner. Their rate of technological advancement continues to accelerate. What took most species thousands of years, humans accomplish in decades. Then what do we do? Asked a delegate from one of the younger member species. Do we prepare for war? Do we build defenses? Morwen walked to the center of the chamber, her ancient form somehow both fragile and powerful at the same time. We do something much harder than preparing for war, she said. We prepare for friendship. The chamber stirred with confused murmurs. The humans are not inherently violent, Morwen continued. They are capable of great destruction. Yes. But they are also capable of great kindness, great creativity, great compassion. They form bonds with other species on their own planet. They risk their lives to save creatures that cannot thank them. They build hospitals and schools and shelters for those in need. She gestured to the displays around the chamber, which now showed different images of humanity. Not weapons and wars, but art and music and acts of kindness. Humans rescuing animals from disasters. Humans caring for the sick and elderly. Humans building things of beauty that served no practical purpose except to bring joy. They have a saying, Morwen said. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The humans understand alliances. They understand cooperation. They have worked with former enemies many times throughout their history. Bitter rivals who fought terrible wars have become close allies within a single generation. She turned to face the full assembly. When the humans discover us, we have two choices. We can greet them as enemies and experience everything the simulation showed us. Or we can greet them as friends and gain the most valuable allies this galaxy has ever known. A young delegate raised a tentacle nervously. But what if they choose to be hostile? What if they see us as a threat? Morwen's glow shifted to a complex pattern of colors that those who knew her species recognized as deep thoughtfulness. Then we must make sure they have no reason to see us as a threat. We must approach them with honesty, with respect, with genuine offers of exchange and cooperation. She paused. And perhaps most importantly, we must never lie to them. Humans value truth above almost everything else. They will forgive many things, but they do not forgive betrayal. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. For many of them, this was a turning point. The humans had always been a distant curiosity, a primitive species on a remote planet. Now they understood that humanity would one day stand among them as equals. Perhaps even as leaders. 50 standard years passed. The Galactic Council had spent that time preparing. They had studied human languages. They had analyzed human culture. They had practiced human customs like handshaking and smiling. They had even learned to make human beverages like something called coffee, though most species found it too bitter to enjoy. When the day finally came, it was nothing like anyone expected. A human spacecraft entered the edge of Council space without warning. It was small, designed for exploration rather than war. It carried a crew of only 12 humans and a message that was broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace. We seek contact with any intelligent life that can hear this message. We represent the people of Earth, and we wish to learn about the universe together. The Council responded carefully, following protocols they had practiced for decades. First contact was made without incident. The humans were cautious, but curious. Exactly as the Council had hoped, Vethener was still alive when the first human delegation arrived at the Council chamber. He was old now, his scales faded with age, but he had insisted on being present for this moment. He needed to see them with his own eyes. The human delegation entered the chamber with a mixture of wonder and confidence. They were led by a woman with silver hair and kind eyes who introduced herself as Ambassador Chen. She smiled at the assembly of strange creatures around her. apparently delighted rather than frightened by their alien appearances. "We are so excited to meet you all," she said, her voice warm and genuine. "We have so many questions. We have so much to share. We want to learn about your cultures, your histories, your dreams for the future." Counselor Morwen, somehow still alive after all these years, stepped forward to greet her. "Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Chen. We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Ambassador Chen tilted her head slightly. "You knew about us?" "We have watched your species with great interest," Morwen admitted. "We saw your potential, your drive, your remarkable ability to overcome any obstacle." The human ambassador laughed, a sound that startled many of the delegates who had never heard such a thing. "We have a lot of faults too, you know. We argue constantly. We make terrible mistakes. We sometimes hurt each other for the stupidest reasons." "We know," Morwen said with a gentle smile. "And yet you keep trying. You keep improving. You keep reaching for something better." Vethener watched as Ambassador Chen moved through the chamber, shaking hands and exchanging greetings with delegates from dozens of species. She treated each one with respect and genuine curiosity, asking questions, listening carefully to answers, laughing at jokes she did not fully understand. When she finally reached him, she extended her hand in the human greeting. "Ambassador Vethener," she said, "I understand your species once considered our worlds for some kind of partnership. I hope we can discuss that in the future." Vethener stared at her hand for a moment. He thought about the invasion he had planned so long ago. He thought about the simulations, the testimonies, the absolute certainty that conflict with humanity meant destruction. Then he looked into her eyes and saw something that the simulations had never shown him. He saw kindness, hope, a genuine desire to connect with beings completely different from herself. He took her hand gently in his scaled grip. "I think," he said slowly, "that we have much to learn from each other." "Ambassador Chen." She smiled, and for just a moment, Vethener understood why the Galactic Council had been so afraid. It was not human strength that made them dangerous. It was not their persistence or their adaptability or their spite. It was this ability to reach out to strangers and make them feel welcome, this warmth that could turn enemies into friends, this strange, impossible optimism that made humans believe they could bridge any gap, solve any problem, and connect with anyone, no matter how different. The most terrifying thing about humanity was not what they could destroy, it was what they could build. And standing there in the great chamber, holding the hand of an alien species he had once planned to enslave, Vethener finally understood that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting place.